Hey everyone, I'm Christian, also known as Lunar, and welcome to Lunar Arcade. Today I'm joined by my good friend Soni, and we're here to talk about the Switch 2, our backlog, other games, what we expect out of the Switch 2. So without further ado, let's get started. But if you're new here, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell notification icon so you can be notified about future content, tips, and other games coming to the Switch 2. I also plan to do an unboxing, so stay tuned for that. But welcome, Soni. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure. Let's jump right into it. Definitely not like we're talking for the past hour already before this.
And we were already talking about it. It's an exciting thing, and with the Switch 2, so to start with the Switch 2, what do you want out of the Switch 2? Especially with the hardware. I mean, for me, just to throw it in there, I've already made some videos about this, and I talked about how it's definitely more powerful, and that's what my biggest want for the Switch 2. It was something that I was waiting for a while. I have a lot of older titles, or not old, but Switch 1 is going to be around for a while, but there are games that just didn't run well, Echoes of Wisdom, the Link to the Past remake, Tears of the Kingdom. There were just a lot of games that had issues, and for me personally, as a computer gamer, I'm more sensitive to the frame rate and stuff, so it bothered me. So I put it on the shelf, and I was like, I'll wait for Switch 2. But now it's finally here, it's coming, and the first thing they showed was Zelda running at 1440p, 60 FPS, and they had people running into the forest and going into the most demanding areas of the game only to have it run smoothly. Even people doing the bomb launch trick where you launch yourself with a bomb to go flying across the map, and there was no delay, no lag, no nothing. And I thought that was really cool and exciting, and it has me excited to play my old library again.
No, I very much feel pretty similar to that. I'm excited to see the way that it's going to take everything that it already had in terms of its library and then upscale it on a greater length, because I feel like one of the worst and constant issues that the Switch had was stuff like that, was when you have a game like Tears of the Kingdom, or even just when Breath of the Wild first came out, it's you give people tools, you're going to get people who are way smarter than you think they are to go and play the game and then try to find a way to break the game. There are people who are building Gundams, right? And Godzilla battles, right? And they were carpet bombing the goblins and everything. And it's nobody was thinking that they could actually accomplish that, and then they did. But with the ingenuity that people can play the game is people being well, it's cool, but it's breaking everything in half, right? So it's I think it's going to give people the smoother experience to be able to, use those outlets in a more creative way. But I also think that what I'd like to see is a stronger competitor to other handheld kind of markets, right? Yeah, exactly that. People building these gigantic mecha tanks. I mean, this is straight up if you told me this was just Power Rangers, I'd be I believe you. It's how do you?
Yeah, people are so creative. I don't even.
Yeah, I mean, and look at that. That's not even anything.
Freaking UFO.
Yeah, I really hope that this has the X-Files music on top of it, dude. Because
Oh yeah, I could definitely throw that in there.
Yeah, but just all this crazy stuff that people are doing, and it's with it being such a vast open world, the possibilities are endless. But with people's imagination, there's only so much that the hardware can do to compensate for what's happening. You can even see in these clips here, it's still
some of the builds are a bit rough. Yeah,
and
especially the bomb launching ones. Yeah,
but it has to do that so this way it can survive. It's I don't care if it's 4K or whatever. I don't care if it's anything crazy. I just want it to be a smooth feel. But it's what I'd more want out of the hardware is for it to just be stable enough. And I really hope that in compensation for that is also not just the stability, but the storage on it. I mean, I know we're getting a 200 to 300 kind of range on the storage, but I fear that with the games getting bigger, with just how much stuff that's coming in, right? Is the Switch still going to be held back? Because a PS5 can come with a terabyte. When I bought my PS5, it only came with a terabyte, and I had to buy another terabyte drive to, be able to not only import my previous games, but also have space for new games too,
Right.
So it's in the market of how much can you push and pull, well, realistically, how much are you compensating for your system to be able to be on the higher level that you can put Cyberpunk on a Switch 2, but still, be be able to play Mario Kart right after that, you know, or do I have to kind of keep going back and forth of uninstall, reinstall, uninstall, reinstall? You know, there's only so much that's absolutely crazy. I'm sorry. I'm losing my train of thought looking at this. This is something like Stone Mountain, you know, I mean, like a laser fireworks show.
Yeah, one guy made like a speeder, like they looked like straight out of Star Wars, and the other guy, he made a wheel thing that I'm like, I'm listening to you talk, but I was like, I'm gonna have to build that, whatever the hell that is, this thing right here. I was like, what?
I mean, you know, I'd say, you know, don't let these people into the military. They create weapons of mass destruction. You know, like this is a Geneva
what
Convention.
What the hell is this?
I mean, I can't lie, that's pretty raw.
Yeah. But
that's like something I actually gotta do, man.
Yeah, and it's just crazy. I mean, I know that it's going to be able to handle it now. It's going to be able to run things like this now a lot better. And mind you, yes, it's a Switch 1 game, but still, like, Nintendo has never been about, you know, the graphic department and everything. And, you know, we were talking earlier before about Steam Deck, for example, and Steam Deck is something that, you know, is definitely powerful, but at the same time, it's up to the developers on whether they're going to optimize their games for it. Like, usually it's what you get, but when you have a company like Nintendo and you have other third-party companies that are going to tailor the technology for games, specifically for the Switch 2, you have this magic that happens where you're like, wow, that's crazy. You know, I can't believe they were able to run this on the freaking Switch 2 on a handheld, and a lot of times they'll have a better optimized experience than something you would get on a Steam Deck. It really depends, but that's what I'm excited to see. It's not something we're going to see very, very early on, you know, because, you know, not a lot of developers have their hand on the tech. We have, you know, there's even the case with, they were talking about how a lot of third-party developers don't even have their hands on some of these dev kits yet, because Nintendo has such a strict process of making sure nobody leaks out anything. So it's just like they're still in the process of like getting ready to hand out to certain developers, and they want to make sure that whoever they give it to or whoever has it right now, it's been ironclad, like they don't have any track record of problems and things like that.
I mean, that's true, but I feel like just realistically in the game world, right, where it's like people realistically are trying to like keep this stuff under wraps, there's always a mold. There's always going to be somebody who's going to get the tech hands first. They're going to grab something, put on a USB, and they just put it out, you know, out for the world to see. And we're already seeing leaks kind of come in left and right, slowly but surely, before it's even fully out to the people, you know, whether that's the hardware, the software that's like being utilized. But I think that like you mentioned before, Nintendo was never about being number one on purpose. They were just like, we're trying to make something that's like fun and is going to last and matter. I feel like for most of the generations in the console wars, they've done exactly that. You know, they've been able to go ahead and create consoles that have been able to stand the test of time and still be like people still want Wii Sports. You know, everybody looks at them and be like, dude, that's such a core memory of mine of, you know, playing the Wii and then doing this, then doing that, and all the games that came out, even with the same sort of set of problems that it might have had, you know, during its development and life cycle before the next thing came around. And I think the Switch 2 is kind of going to be in the same boat. It's going to have some weird stuff that's probably going to come once we start getting it. We start really stress testing it in people's environments, and then once stuff buffs out 3, 4, 5 years later down the line, they'll probably release a Switch 2.5. You know, that'll maybe address some other smaller issues, and then that'll be that. I think realistically, the only thing it needs to kind of worry about, like, I don't think the processing is going to be the problem, right? Like we mentioned before, like you're going to be able to do the crazy stuff in the game like that. Like for example, like the new Hyrule Warriors game that they announced. All that stuff is, here's a million things in front of you, and have the system process it, and then do a super cool, crazy attack that releases 1,000 explosions. Even on the Switch 1, it could do that, and it was fine, but now it's going to be able to do even more. But
that was another game I skipped out on, the first two Hyrule games that came. Yeah, because it was like, it had a lot of performance issues, and it had a dynamic resolution scaling, so it's like it would really drop when it came to the resolution whenever the game was running. And I still want to get it now that it's Switch 2. I want to see how it like handles it. Maybe it's not getting a patch, but maybe it will. And I mean, even without the patch, you know.
But I think regardless of whether it has it or not, I think it'll be just a true testament to see the difference between the first iteration of it and then seeing how it's kind of coming out through there. Because for sure, like maybe the process on the way they build the game might be better in this newer one, to where like they're doing things in a smarter way, so this way they can compensate for heavier collision and heavier particles and whatever, as opposed to maybe what was there in the first kind of line of work.
Right.
But I think realistically, we can already kind of see that everything is pretty much just the same stuff that they're ripping from the last game,
Yeah.
and they're using those assets because why wouldn't you? And use that as the base build for everything, and then add in everything else. And I think we'll probably get a lot of really cool, super detailed models and stuff, and like just the usual like glitz and glamour that you'd want out of a Warriors game.
Right.
But I think overall you'll still see stuff will have to take a backseat. Like it's kind of tradition that like the main characters and the weapons and the stuff that they really want you to focus on will be really good, but it's like the maps will probably be maybe a bit bland because it's going to be a lot of empty rooms, because like every single one is just like, here's a map with a bunch of grids, go to here, go to there, go to here, go to there, and like it'll have detail, but it's not going to be what people are probably expecting out of it if they're expecting that super high 4K resolution on everything. But I think Nintendo's kind of, they find their mark in style, right? Like the art direction that they have is the thing that usually was what's pushing them forward. And if we want to specifically talk Legend of Zelda, like their current art direction ever since Breath of the Wild has been something that they've been able to really push super hard and forward with, because it just fits that niche middle point where it's like people are like, it's reminiscent of Studio Ghibli, but it still has, you know, Lord of the Rings kind of elements and the designs of stuff, and like, you know, it's kind of got this like Aztec Mayan kind of vibe in some of like the calligraphy and the drawings or whatever. Like there's so many elements.
Even the machines and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much that's pulling from that's like, who cares if it runs terribly? If it looks cool and people have fun, people are going to play it. And I think that's what they're trying to do. But I think they're trying to compensate too with not having as many original stuff or main IP things, because of how many things they're announcing. They're saying like, hey, here's Cyberpunk, hey, here's Street Fighter 6, hey, here's FIFA, here's Fortnite, you know? And like, that's the best thing that they could get, because the biggest thing that they had to draw back to was like, well, you can't play the bigger titles that everyone else is playing right now, right? Like you can't get on anything else until way later. I mean, there was this huge joke of like, how many years will it take before we get Persona 5 on the Switch, right? Yes. And then they finally did it, and they're like, oh my god. But, you know, you kind of run into the situation of like, we were talking about this a bit earlier, you know, I love fighting games, and I like Mortal Kombat, but when Mortal Kombat came out on the Switch, it was an absolute nightmare, you know? Everything was looking terrible. Literally, like, this was recorded on a potato type beat, you know, Hypercam 2 in the corner. You know, and everything. It's like, oh, is this a demo build? It's like, no, this is the fully released $60 plus game that Nintendo is forcing you to pay, when you could realistically spend just better money for the better version of it, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that's just me, because
I think you're right too. And it's just like, I'm not, you know, when things run at 4K, it's cool, sure. But at the same time, I feel like we kind of, in a way, skipped a generation, because we went straight from 1080 to 4K. And I gotta be honest, they're like the first like PlayStation 5 game that I saw running at an actual like 1440p 60. There's the 4K mode, I believe, but the 1440p 60 mode for performance was the Demon Souls remake, right?
Yeah.
And I gotta tell you, on a 4K screen, 55-inch, 1440p looks sharp. It looks great. And it's just like, you won't even notice that it's not 4K. It's, you know, there were people at the Nintendo, you know, showroom playing the games now, and they were saying that the game Mario and Zelda were running at 4K and 60, and they were playing it. And I'm like, those games are not running at 4K 60. And then lo and behold, you have like Digital Foundry and others looking at it, and they're like, the pixel count is like 1440p. But that's how good 4K is. And I think games can run a lot smoother at that resolution. So I'm not too worried about like the 4K stuff. But even then, like, you know, like I agree with you completely with the art direction with Nintendo. They've always been able to nail that. And that's why they have this first party thing going on where, you know, if you want to play, you know, Nintendo stuff, you're going to have to get the Switch too. Like, you're not going to find Mario on any other platform, you know, unless you run an emulation or something. But that's what it is. And that's why people...
By the way, we're not telling you to do, but...
Yeah. but it exists. But you know, a lot of people have wanted something more powerful, and because the Switch wasn't that, they were getting the Steam Deck, they were running emulation on their PC, they were doing those things. People wanted that. It looks like Nintendo finally listened, and they're making it a lot more powerful now.
Well, I think part of that too is they are doing their own emulation now. You know what I mean, like there's been the big complaint, right? And this isn't just Nintendo, this is any game period of like, okay, if I want to play these older games, why do I have to sell an arm and a leg to play it, right? And I'm not even talking about like, I want to get like my hands on an NES cartridge, right? Like, I just want to play Silent Hill 2, right? Why do I have to pay over hundreds of dollars to get that when, you know, there's no other way to get it without jumping that barrier? And they'll say, well, you should support the official release. Sure, by all means, but it's like these developers and whoever else is owning whatever is not giving you a reasonable way to do it, so people are going to want to take the cheap way out because they deserve to experience those games, so they'll go for emulation. And Nintendo has always been the hardest with that, right? Like, there's been a bunch of places that host, you know, VST or emulations or whatever, and they'll go ahead and they'll just sue them, and then, or you know, send a cease and desist, and then here you go, everything's ripped. I mean, you can't even do like Smash tournaments anymore, right? With having a prize pool, because they basically said you can't do that. You can't make money off of our IP or whatever is what it was. I'm not too sure, but like, you know, they're super strict with it. But I guess now that they're kind of saying, instead of like you do it, let's kind of meet in the middle, but there's still the initial paywall, right? Like, go ahead and buy the super premium pass or whatever, and then you get access to the 64 emulator, the GameCube emulator, and like they're moving up and up and up. And this is kind of the same thing that I've kind of had discussions with World of Warcraft, weirdly enough, where it's like World of Warcraft came out, and then they got to this point, and then they released the classic version to go along with that. But it's like, if you complete the classic story, you get the next expansion, right? And then how much are you just following the expansion up until you meet where the original game goes to, right? So where is Nintendo going to draw the line of being like, we're going to emulate up to X point? And I feel like with them upgrading the hardware, it's giving them more resources to be able to emulate more. You know, I feel like the cutoff would probably have to be something before, or maybe even just the Wii, you know?
And I'll put it up on the screen here, but I found a screenshot that I took from Dota, one of the people behind the development of the Switch 2, because just for anyone who doesn't know, the reason the Switch 2, how it's actually playing the older Switch 1 titles is through a kind of half emulation, half something else that's going on behind the scenes, because prior generations of technology, like, you know, 3DS playing DS games and, you know, Wii U playing Wii games, it's because the Wii U technically was a souped up Wii. And the 3DS was a souped up DS. It had the technology in it, hardware wise, physical hardware. And now the Switch 2 is a completely different beast. It doesn't have any of the Switch 1 hardware in it. And it is like kind of being run in a container of sorts. So it's emulating, but not full emulation, because full emulation would cause some issues, but I'll read it here. I'll put it up on the screen here. But it says here, you mentioned that the new technology is used to achieve compatibility, but there are situations where playing Switch games on the Switch 2 will enhance the gameplay experience. And Dota replies, when we tried running Switch games on Switch 2, there were some where loading times became faster or game performance became more stable. So we realized that the overall gameplay experience could improve. And as mentioned previously, Game Chat will also be available for Switch games that are played on Switch 2. Even for previously released games, there are opportunities to add value in the sense that it can enhance and change the gameplay experience. We understand that people want to buy the new hardware so they can play new games created for it, so we developed the Switch 2 with that in mind. So you have him telling you there that it, you know, they didn't do this so that you could play Switch 1 games, although they know people want to actually play Switch 1 games on it, but they had to go a different route. But it's still exciting, because obviously, like, you see people running the, you know, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, running at the performance and resolution levels that they are, and it's really good. And people who are there were saying, like, you have to see it to, like, really believe it, because it looks amazing in person. But one thing I wanted to pivot to is just that the screen So there's been a lot of concern. I've been having the same concern originally about the screen not being an OLED, but it turns out everyone has been giving the screen like the best of compliments, saying that if you're worried about it being OLED, not being OLED, then you have nothing to worry about because it looks amazing. And I'll share that here. But what were your thoughts on like it not being OLED? I mean, now it has HDR, so I think that's really cool. But like they were also saying that it has to be like IPS of some kind because of the viewing angles are really, really good. So I'm actually really excited to see this. Yeah, it's not OLED. It doesn't, in darker scenes, you're going to notice the difference. But in terms of peak brightness, they're saying it's great.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, personally, I never really cared whether or not even like the original Switch was OLED or not. Like to me, it was never... Like again, this goes back into like the whole 4K dilemma, right? Where it's like just people want to live and die on the hill of like, oh, it's not 4K Ultra HD DLXR. As like, dude, I'm trying to just play I'm trying to play Street Fighter and lose. All right, that's what my day is like. All right, I don't care if it's this, that, or the other. I can imagine honestly, like the OLED would probably honestly make it even more expensive. And I think with like everything else currently going on and how much bang for our buck we're trying to get, it's not going to be that great if it went straight to the more expensive product route. I think what they probably ended up doing was kind of revamping their entire LCD product. I think that and what I mean is like you can even see in here, right? Like in these clips when they kind of go over it, like why is it so much better than before? I don't think I think they're just finding better parts for less, I think the OLED version of this would probably even make it more crystal clear, but I think there's just some stuff that you just have to kind of bite the bullet on with a console like this, It's like...
As I understand it, they're saying that you're actually exactly right, that having an OLED VRR, variable refresh rate screen running at 120, VRR does not play nice with OLED, at least the current technology. And we might have the technology that exists to actually do it right, but it's extremely expensive. So it's like, they had to make a sacrifice there, and I'm more than happy to have a screen that we're not there in person, but look at the colors.
Fine. Yeah, like who looks at this and be like, oh my god, this is so bad, bro. This is just I'm like, there's always going to be that one guy, right? Like, of course, and that's totally fine. That's personal preference, but also, it's a lose-lose situation. You either get the super crazy new high-tech stuff all the time, or you get the cheaper version that runs just as good, that is not discernible to the naked eye.
And it's 1080p too, so it's like, I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
I mean, yeah, it's like, dude, like I get that people might be worrying about the God of War is not going to look great on this. It's like, I think like games as a whole has kind of fallen into this pitfall of like, if it doesn't look super realistic all the time, it doesn't look good at all. And like, I totally get where people are coming from when the space of like, hey, this game is meant to be realistic, right? It needs to have this so the core of the game is better for it. For example, Mortal Kombat. When Mortal Kombat comes out on every other console and it looks good because that's what it's meant for, cool. But when you put Mortal Kombat on the Switch and it looks terrible, you're like, well, this is definitely not worth the money, right? Sure, the game might be fun still, but it's like when the game relies solely on the aesthetics of it being the thing that pushes it forward, I totally get where people are coming from, but like, I think we're losing returns, right? Whatever the phrase is, it's like there's a net negative at some point where like that's the only thing you kind of are fighting for. It really just depends on what the next set of games are going to be like. It's like every game that we've seen so far that's come out, if it's not basically a PS4 game, I mean, like look at this.
You go from potato.
Yeah, to go from potato to tomato, I mean, it's like, geez, it's look at that. So it's missing that looks like a pre-demo phase. This is like something that was still like in a lab or some sort, man. Like,
the lighting is like it's not there.
And dude, I'll tell you, like, even if it just looked like that, if the game's fun to play, it's fun to play, but you're not gonna get people wanting to play it all the time if it doesn't look that great.
And people who are playing it on Switch 2 are like, like you can tell that there's still like a downgrade here and there, but at the same time, like once you start playing, it's
the game. That's it.
Yeah, you forget about it.
Yeah, and like it's just going to be par for the course at some point. That this is just how it's going to have to be, and I think most people will get that. It's just it's a small but loud minority of people who will go out online and kind of realistically complain about it on a larger scale. But it's like, I'm not too sure. I think especially like what you mentioned before with the emulation stuff, it'll be kind of a whole different ball game, because I think with like playing older games is always going to be difficult, just because like the code that's embedded in the game is not always easier to run the lower the generation it comes. So it's like, like you can't natively port an NES game, right? Like you have to get the emulated version and get that version of it patched onto something on some sort of platform to like put it somewhere, right? So I think with like the newer set of titles that will come out, I think it'll be interesting to see how much will like get re-released, basically. And see like what will actually take over. Are we realistically going to be using more emulation-based stuff, or this side or the other? But like that's one of the stuff that I'm more interested in. Like again, going back to just like the screens of it and all, like I don't think it's going to make any sort of realistic difference. I think when you get the game in your hands and it's just like made for it and it looks good, like it's just going to be fine. Like no one's going to care.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what it's honestly going to be like, and I know it's not a PS5. I know it's not a PS5.
Yeah, I mean, like 100%.
That's totally okay. And,
it has its placement.
And speaking of performance and everything, we have this. There was a leak. Somehow these guys got their hand on the actual motherboard or the Switch 2, and they were breaking it down. They had like sophisticated machinery to like actually analyze the chipset and stuff, and while they don't have like actual numbers, they can guesstimate pretty much like how powerful this thing actually is. And they actually have the chipset numbers and everything that's on here, and they go into like how much RAM it has and stuff like that. And I believe it has like 12 gigs of RAM, and once this loads here, and it's weird because, like people are comparing, apples to oranges. Oh, it's a PS4. Oh, it's like this. And like a simulated PS4. And you have the numbers here. And where does the Switch 2 land? So there is a significant power jump here, which is really exciting to have in a handheld. And I'm just happy. And a lot of people like to play docked. I have a friend who wants to play mostly docked, and that's cool. And I will be playing docked when I'm home. But, there are times where, girlfriend wants to watch TV or something, and you could just take it with you to bed. You could or sit on the couch next to her, or take it outside if you want to. And, cross play and cross save is a big thing now, too. So there are games that do that. And I'm always a big fan of that. But
no, for sure. I mean, that's always been the Switch's, hook. It's the fact that like you can take it here, you can take it there, and then you can go ahead and do literally anything else that you want with it. Like PlayStation had it for a second, I mean, like we're not even talking about like PSP era, I mean that was like goated, for what it was doing. But it's like what they're trying to do, like the PS5 portable or whatever, that the gigantic tablet with the built-in controller that looked absolutely terrible. Yeah, like it like how am I supposed to carry that with me, right? And like that was only like doing cloud-based gaming too, outside of like whatever I think you were installing locally. Oh no, you could even play games on locally. You had to do like a share play thing, right? Where it's like you have to play stuff from your PS5 to that, and you have to basically be, I think, on the same network or something to like even get it to work, So it's like
there are caveats to that too, because it's like it can be blurry and can be there, latency, things like that.
Anything that's immensely cloud-based, and PlayStation has not had the best track record with that. I think Xbox has had a better run of doing stuff like that because of Game Pass. They've had more experience with it. I think they've kind of fine-tuned it because that's more what they're relying on as opposed to creating, sold titles. They've kind of given up on that for the most part. Like they'll make a Halo 17, but like you're not getting the same exclusives like you used to back then. Like Xbox has specifically been like, look, we were number three on 3 with the console portfolio. We were never 2 or 1, and the people who were number 1, it's technically Nintendo because of stuff like this. They being able to get their hands on stuff that is utilized for the largest amount of people, but still having stuff that's in the middle where like you see here, right? It's better than the PS4, and it's not as great as a PS5 or Xbox, whatever, but it's in that sweet spot where it can take all those games though and still run at a really good rate and just push that through. And again, the quality of the games themselves that they're getting, it's like how many years have we waited for Silksong? It's like we probably like we wrote the Constitution, we signed the Declaration of Independence, we waited, and then Silksong finally came out, right? The only thing we need now next is the Final Fantasy IX remake, and then I'll be happy. I'll die right then and there, you know.
Oh yeah,
it comes.
it's coming. They already said the remake is coming to Switch 2.
I mean, I've heard that. I've heard it, but they got me during that trailer, right? When they showed the Bravely Default and it was the first character there. I thought it was Rose. It was not. I was like, Dagger's great, but I'm just like, until I see the monkey boy himself, you know, this is Zidane jumping around on airships. If I see Vivi especially blasting him down, that's it.
I heard they're also working on that, and that may make an appearance. We'll see, because of course rumors and stuff. But it's supposedly making an appearance next year, so we'll have Final Fantasy IX.
Wait and see.
Yeah, but
see, this is what I'm talking about here, about like this being just perfect for Switch, because this is
platformers, man.
Well, yeah, platformers have always been, you know, in Nintendo's history, right? But just like this game feels so perfect for the Switch just because it's stylistic. It's got so much style to it, you know. Right. That and like Hades 2 being on Switch as well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I do worry a bit because I know, like, I never beat the first Hollow Knight, and if I kept going, I'd probably break my controller in half. I feel like breaking your Switch 2 over your knee is probably a more expensive thing than a controller, but we'll play that by ear.
Yeah, and there's also been talk, and I'll share it here. The Switch 2 Pro controller, actually. There's been a lot of talk about this, and surprisingly, haven't heard anyone talk about the D-pad really. There's except one person, and he says it's better, and I'm like, okay, cool. I hope so, because it's like if you have the original D-pad on the original Pro controller, if you mess with it, it's very mushy. It's also imprecise. Not really that great for something like Street Fighters and stuff like that, because you get like double inputs and stuff. So, but they were saying that the biggest thing that they noticed is the quality of the sticks. The sticks are actually very, very smooth, and people even saying that it's the smoothest they've ever felt. Even like the the ring around the analog sticks where you actually move.
Right, yeah, we can see that there.
They say it's so smooth, and they have no idea how it was done, because it feels glidey in the best of ways. And plus, it's the first Sprite controller we ever got for any console that actually has the extra triggers.
That's what I was going to bring up. It's got the programmable buttons on the back and everything. Yeah. Like, I remember having to buy bootleg Switch Pro controllers with that built in, you know, like map and stuff. So the fact that they're looking at that and be like, well, that's such a great way to include it in there. And I'm interested to see how developers even try to utilize that. Kind of similar to like how, you know, when PS5 came out, they're like, you know, the haptic feedback on like the triggers and stuff was such a big thing, right? And like the whole DualShock sense was really integrated even during the PS4. You know, I remember like playing like a game like Gravity Rush, you know, like utilizing the touchpad and the motion controls and stuff like that to like, you know, make the characters move and whatnot. To see how they like make you doing stuff physically more part of playing the game as opposed to what you're used to, you know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's an interesting way to kind of see how developers kind of take that road and then go with it to maybe see if they want to like challenge themselves. But also it could just be like, I have I'm just gonna press Hadouken, you know, 900 times.
What's also interesting is that I learned, and this is, I feel like they could have done better advertising for this, but it's been said that the trigger, the extra buttons on the back, you can actually program them. They're programmable per game, so you don't have to like set it for every, like you set it for each game, so that way it'll remember what you set it for. So you don't have to like set it up every time you play. Like it'll know, and it even goes at, you know, unless somebody corrects me if I'm wrong, it even can change between profiles. So like if girlfriend's playing on her profile, it'll remember her settings versus mine, which I think
right. Even though you're sharing the same controller, it's not going to be built into the back end of that. Just it would be a profile user thing. Which I mean, I think that is fair. I wouldn't think that would be too difficult in terms of like coordinating that, as long as every, you know, user had their own data, right, that they're storing locally on there. They should be able to go kind of get that pushed through.
Yeah,
I do wish to see what else they kind of have in store, just aesthetically for the controller, because I think maybe like the only big turnoff I can think of is maybe just the similarity between the two.
Yeah.
Because I love the sleek black look of it. I think I only saw in a like previous clip that they had like the white triggers and buttons and stuff like that.
Right.
But I definitely think like seeing if they will continue to integrate newer controllers, right? Like
Yeah.
how like is the previous GameCube controller going to be worth it, etc. You know what I mean?
I thought it was, but then now I'm having second thoughts about it because apparently the GameCube controller that they're going to release, that's on the 13th when pre-orders go live, or 12th, and it only works with a GameCube Classic Collection that they have going, which I was just like, oh really? Like if that's the case, like, you know, that kind of sucks because you're paying $50-$60 and you can't use it on any other games that you might want to use it on. Not saying you want to use it on every game, but like playing Smash Bros. Switch version, you know, with it, like, will that actually work? I think they were saying that because it's lacking certain buttons that it won't, but
I'm going to cut you off. This is me when I find out that I can use the GameCube controller on the Switch too.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, shout out to this game too, by the way. I mean, I'll say
Donkey Kong Bonanza.
Well, I mean, I wasn't first initially sold on it at first, just because I'm not too much of a Donkey Kong type of guy. But it's like, this is what I'm talking about, where it's like Nintendo will just have an idea for something, they build a core mechanic around it, and then they're just like, let's just make a super fun game.
They're really good at that. My only qualm about this one, and I know I'm a stickler for performance, is that a lot of people playing this on the show floor were saying that there were a lot of heavy performance issues with it. That also certain assets, certain objects in the game were moving at a certain frame rate versus like Donkey Kong. So it, like, you could tell there was like a disconnect there. But they ended up having so much fun. But aside from that, they said that also opening the map, because when you open the map, it's a full 3D map that you can actually move around. Maybe it's still in development. Maybe they're, you know, still got some patches to do. It's not out yet.
I mean,
I think it comes out in July.
If Cyberpunk can go through 500 patches, right? If we look at like today, you know, was it the 5, 10, 25 on this day, right? We look at Cyberpunk and we go, oh yeah, it's a good game, you can play it. That was not said about when it first came out, you know what I mean? And the fact that day one patches are already like, you know, so common to begin with, you know, I don't see it being any different from like, well, what's going to happen with probably that game or probably multiple other games in the same vein, you know. I think they'll fix the small thing in the performance issues or stuff that they're still working on. But in terms of having a demo, if people still look at those flaws and go, oh, that's sick, still, like done, you know, they can get the rest of that fixed up.
Yeah. And I'm just excited for so many other things too. And there's another game I'll play next that's coming out. It's coming out on all platforms, but to see it on Switch, like, I'm thinking of getting it on the Switch 2 instead of like the Steam Deck, because Switch 2 has the DP screen, right?
Right.
And it also had the HDR, I heard, is really good, but it's the Machina game. It's like a robot game. They already had one that came out on PC and the first Switch. I'll play it next. And it is or I'll just play it now, actually, so people know what I'm talking about. Yeah, Daemon X Machina. That's what it's called.
Oh yeah, I saw it. I remember seeing this during the conference, whatever, that they had done. Yeah, this is pretty sick. Isn't there a thing where it's like you can jump out the suit?
I don't know if you could jump out the suit of this one, but you could in the first game. The first game was very, because this looks like a not giant mech, but he's in kind of like an exosuit. Whereas the first game, it was definitely more like a Gundam. Like the first game was more Gundam. It wasn't as open worldy as this. Like you had a play area, like a little sandbox per mission. Yeah, it was like mission based, kind of like a Monster Hunter or something like that. And you could jump out of your suit and fight, which is amazing. I was like, oh wow, this game is like underrated. Like, what's going on? But performance issues on Switch 1. I got it on Steam, and then played it on the Steam Deck. Steam Deck, beautiful, solid 60 FPS game, really good game, which has me actually excited for this one. I mean, you had like a hub. It was multiplayer. I don't know if this one will be multiplayer, but let's see. Daemon. The people can see the first game, Daemon X Machina, and where is the? Let's put that here so people can see what it looks like. So you had this hub area, and you can play with friends or by yourself, and there's full voice acting and everything. Pretty much everything you can want out of a Gundam game. I have no idea why it's not playing. I have an actual good connection, like my internet connection saying it's solid.
It's Nintendo. Nintendo is saying, bro, you're leaking too many of our documents out here, bro. We gotta put an end to this before it gets too out of hand.
But
I mean,
yeah,
I like the art style.
yeah, it was like a cell shady kind of art style, and you can like fully customize, paint your Gundam. Like, they're always going to be Gundams to me, man. They're like this.
I mean, that's exactly what they are. I mean, look,
Yeah.
big giant robots with people in them. I know as you know, it's only real Gundam when it's it's child soldiers and they're saying war is bad.
Yeah, and it was honestly a great game, and it had you could drop all your gear, pick up other gear on the field. If your Gundam was getting destroyed, you can just repair it or jump out of it and then like fight like on the ground. You had like a little mini jetpack thing, and then you start running around fighting. And I thought it was really good, and I was like, wow, we need more games like this, because it just felt like a blast to play. Very quick, very action oriented, had a story, and again with the voice acting, everything. It's always those little things, those little touches that kind of bring it to life. So because the game was so good, like, I trust them now. I trust the developers, so I feel like they're going to do a good job. I don't know how many people are interested in it. It might end up being a hidden gem, but yeah, there you go. You jump out of.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Yeah. Because I mean, like, these type of games have been around for a hot minute. Yeah, like I remember like when I first had like the original Xbox, I had like a couple demo discs that had like a game like this, where it's like go around in a mech, fight other crazy like mechs or monsters or whatever the hell, and like just have fun, Yeah.
And
I feel like there's a really strong community again with like these type of games that's like, if they see it, they're gonna eat it up. But I think like as long as it's doing them justice in terms of the gameplay and like the story of it as well, like I think they'll probably have themselves a hit with the new one as well.
Yeah, and it looks really good. Like it.
I mean,
really
the aesthetics and like the small clips that you showed me here look pretty chill. So I'm like, yeah, I'd be down to go it. Yeah, like.
And you can see the graphic improvements already.
Yeah,
and like
wave dashing, and stuff like that. It's like doing these like Devil May Cry type combos. I was like,
this is gonna be a pickup for me for sure.
Yeah, seriously. Honestly, that's a game I'd like to see like put back on the Switch. Get the Devil May Cry series put on.
Oh yeah, Devil May Cry, and I feel like you could definitely run it now. So that's something. And they even have the Devil May Cry show. If anybody is.
Yeah, I mean tie it into. I mean, the show is very different from the
initial
stuff, but it's like I'd really like to see kind of like where they go with like with it being more powerful, right? Like there's obviously like a super big tie-in for like we'll throw in a million explosions, just have fun with it. I think there's kind of like maybe two camps to this. Like I think I'm a bit more in the other camp, but it's like the people who want to just see super detailed stuff on here, which is totally fine. I'm also in the aspect of like creative and more interesting designs and art styles.
Yeah,
kind of get pushed onto here.
I'm not a graphics kind of guy, because it's like I love pixel games. Like I will play a game for gameplay more than how it looks, because it really, judging, you can really judge a book by its cover for video games, because that happens a lot. Like people are like, oh, this looks lame, and then it ends up being a hidden gem, and it being details or gameplay mechanics that you could ask for in a game. And you never, a lot of first party games miss that, and a lot of third party will make these like little indie games that are amazing, and you're like, wow, because they have the freedom to do so.
Deltarune is was announced that chapters 3 and 4 are going to be put out on the Switch and released to help continue the story there. And like Toby Fox is an insanely crazy like high game developer right now with his current success and the way he's been able to push his unique style games, right? But yeah, I hope that like more independent and smaller companies are going to be more accepted, right? And like not get deterred that like if you don't have something that's AAA worthy, that you can't get on here. Which I know like Nintendo's been pretty open with them to begin with. It's like the amount of times you can go on like the eShop right now and find just like 1,000,001 like mobile games basically that got ported onto the Switch, But there is a lot of really good stuff that doesn't have to be $1 million worth. You know what I mean? Just like if you have a super cool concept or just something that's super, I mean, like something like this too. Like this is like a comfy, cozy type of looking game, But with just like a fun concept. I mean, very Dragon Questy.
I have the first one, and the second one comes out on the 18th if you pre-order.
Yeah.
Otherwise, regular release date is the 22nd. But I was picking this up on the Steam Deck because I didn't know if it was coming out to Switch 2, but they announced that it is coming to Switch 2. They just don't have a release date yet, but it's cross-play and cross-saves. Like, you can...
Right, so if you get on one, you get on the other, you could just jump back and forth with the same stuff.
Or if you got it on PS5, I can still play with you even though I'm on my Steam Deck kind of thing. So that's really good.
I'm interested to see just kind of like where they get to draw the line of like, this is the limit. This is the capability of how much we can port something onto here with the Switch 2. Because like personally, I mean, for example, like this game looks great. I love it. Like when I saw the trailer for it, like I love Metroid. So like finally being able to like see this coming more into play and whatnot. Like
and mouse controls.
Yeah, like I'm like this is what I'm talking about. Like them building like cool ingenuitive ways to like play games, right?
Yep.
That like fit the gameplay style, what you're saying. I would also like to kind of say like, you know, like right now one of my favorite games is the new Monster Hunter game.
Yeah.
But I obviously know like that's such a big haul just for like the PlayStation alone, you know?
Yeah.
Like where does the fat get to the meat, and how much fat needs to get trimmed for you to get what you want out of the Switch 2? That's something I personally like to see and like kind of stress test if they end up getting to that kind of scale. Which I imagine I don't think they could immediately do that specifically, but like with the amount of games that they're putting on, that they're saying they could like really do some really cool stuff with.
Yeah.
I feel like we're getting closer and closer, which I don't know, maybe we'll kind of go down the route of like similar to like the Pokemon games, right? Where it's like people were complaining like that they wanted super more in-depth and detailed worlds and stuff, which I totally get. You know, I haven't played any of the more recent ones, but everything that I've seen has not interested me in a long time in stylistic ways. But I know like a very big complaint is people being like, the world feels too barren, or this, that, or the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So hopefully with like it getting more of a boost, that I could like do something like to really kind of ease those concerns, because I feel like every Pokemon game is almost hit or miss at this point that comes out.
Yeah, that's you brought up something I wanted to talk about briefly. They have somebody brought it up and I was like, you know what, I completely agree with you. And they're talking about more challenging Pokemon games, because it's like, yeah, you know, it's also for kids and kids love Pokemon, and I get that, but it's like the guy made a good point. He's like, yeah, when we went to go pre-order or pick up our order of Scarlet Violet, everyone in line was adults, and there were like barely any kids in line. You know what I mean? So it's like adults are like, a lot of adults are into Pokemon, and I'm certainly into Pokemon, so I think it's awesome. But there's this skill gap that like it's very easy, and kind of like what we were talking about prior to recording, that, you know, when you were playing Sword and Shield and you grinded out the level up candies, and then you just spam them to your Pokemon. There's a point where it's,
for anyone who needs to question, it's like I'm about it. You know, that's my original copy of Sapphire. Stay strapped, stay ready at all times. Whenever you need you battle it out. I feel like ever since I stopped playing, the same concerns I've had back then are still around. The old games kind of made you feel the difficulty. I feel like the rivals that you had were definitely people like worthy of being your rival. Last game I played was Sword, and I kind of stopped after that. But like having the ability to go ahead and farm up the rare candies and then like shove it down their throats, you know, like, and basically give them a steroid boost down to victory road, you know?
Yeah. And it also, I don't know if they're going to keep this battle system that's coming in ZA, but it's like a blend between Arceus and something else now, where you're actually kind of somewhat have more control over the battles and movement and dodging and stuff like that, which is really interesting, because it looks like the battle system is taking more of a kind of action-based format. I don't know if they're going to keep it, you know, if it's runs well as it looks. So like, you know, maybe I hope.
I mean, I think it's an interesting route to go by, like to have live action battles. I think regardless of whatever answer they take, there's always going to be people screaming that was the wrong answer. right? Like I think it's not
Yeah,
going to matter
of
whether or
course.
not they stick
You
to
can't
the
make everyone happy.
yeah, no, of course. Like if they stick to the original, hey, it's your turn to do this, it's your turn to do that, stay in the pose and do whatever. Like I feel like from the last time I had ever touched a Pokemon game, they were trying to do a bit more with like the Dynamax battles and whatnot.
Yeah,
I feel like even then it's it was still the same. The only difference was like instead of just you, it would be like you and like 3 or 4 other players, right? And then you get
yeah,
to do. I don't think it's the style or the ideas that they have. I think it's just like people want more out of some of these animations and some of the combat. So I feel like if they're implementing stuff like this, I mean, like I think like already what we're seeing right now is pretty cool. Like this makes me interested to be like, oh, that's cool. Like I want to be man and like zip line across. But I feel like it gets to the point of if it looks cool in the trailer, but then I buy the game and it's not as good, right? Whether that's because of the performance or maybe because like even in that like that video that you showed us, there was like I don't know what they are anymore, but there was like 10 Butterfrees that somebody was running around. It's like it's like I would like a little bit more diversity, unless this is Butterfree Farm or whatever the heck.
yeah. My biggest gripe with this is that you're locked to the city. You're not really like Arceus, where you're out in nature and stuff like that, which I would prefer.
It's weird.
But at the same time, there is another Pokemon game in the works aside from ZA coming out, and apparently it's supposed to be, well, the rumor is that it has to do with a chain of islands in Greece. So there's going to be ocean traveling and stuff like that, and it's going to be, I think, exclusively for the Switch too. So with that kind of power, you can imagine what it's going to be like.
I mean, if
And
they're
these
doing
are
stuff
just
like this, I think they have a pretty good leg up to do it. I think it's a matter of just them being able to have like a decent enough execution.
and these are just placeholder names that people made up, I think, for the new games, but they're thinking it has to do with like other regions. But I mean, I'm excited. I mean, I love anything Pokemon too, so it's.
I mean, to kind of go back to that point of like, I did just about what was it, Z, about it being locked to like one location. I think they're probably maybe just trying to be a bit experimental. I think maybe the story probably justifies it. I'd have to assume. Yeah. But I do think that
because it's the same city as Pokemon X and Y. I didn't realize that. I missed that part. And it's the same city.
But like even in those games, like it was about traveling and like exploring more than just one area. You know what I mean? Then you went to all right, here we are in Florida. If we can only be in Miami, that would suck.
Yeah, and I still haven't gotten a chance to play it, but Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
I'm gonna be real. The legendary Pokemons for Scarlet and Violet looked so bad. I did not. It really did put me off. These things, whatever they are. I was like, why does this Pokemon have a tire in its chest? Yeah. Like I like the starters on this one too. I like the.
I think it's the main. Yeah, the starters look cool. I think I'm gonna choose the cat. But
I kept seeing edits of the duck Pokemon, the water one. I don't know its name, but I kept seeing a bunch of edits where they kept making it look like a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure character, and I kept losing my mind because I'm like, it's got that gigantic pompadour and everything. I'm like, that feels fitting.
Yeah, and those legendary Pokemon are what I was trying to see if he had it in this video. Maybe he's too early in this gameplay, but trying to find one. But you ride them. Apparently.
I mean, I've seen that. I've seen the clips of like, it's not even just the one with the tires, but like you could do it on both of them. It's
like one
you
of
basically
them
drive them around as like your bike. I was like, I mean, I get it if you're like paired with them super early on, that's like just the story of the game or whatnot. But I was like, this is a bit much for me. I was like,
I could definitely see the weirdness of it.
Well, again, also from me, like my perspective of like Pokemon in general, it's like only main games I played up to was like like Sapphire was my first one. It's still my favorite one, just like in terms of the story, kind of like the way it's structured. Just because I like the idea of like this big legendary Pokemon, or like even just like the story of that is like Kyogre and everything. It's like it's literally a battle between land and sea. And it's these two gigantic forces fighting for dominance, and like that's always been kind of like a massive parallel, right? Throughout a lot of them. So it's like when I got to like Sword and Shield, or even seeing this, it's like, do you want to be the caveman bike or do you want to be the future bike? It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah, I still
I guess.
haven't played mine. I have like the double pack that has both. Because I don't have too many like friends who play Pokemon. I mean, some of them do, but it's like been a while, and like trying to get a hold of them to trade and stuff.
I mean, hey, feel free to send a copy over. I'll grind it out. I'll skip everything. If I find another stack of rare candies and I can just like forcefully just like feed them, yeah, I'll do that. I'll max them out real quick for you, dude.
Yeah, I still have to beat Sword and Shield, so I'm like behind. Also, like I'm near the end of Sword, but again, like life stuff getting in the way, and then getting distracted sometimes.
Yeah, that's like the weirdest thing to me about like this is kind of part of the reason why I've kind of like jumped away from Pokemon a lot more. It's just because like as much as I love the franchise and like the art and everything else about it, from like the stuff that like still makes me like it from when I was like a kid looking at it, it's definitely the other people who are also into it that has like been my personal biggest like dissuasiveness. So like, yeah, I don't feel, you know, like I'm on the same level with the people who are like super hard in the paint, you know. So I'm just like, hey, look, they're gonna be super like into it. I like it, but like they're on another level. Like right. I've always kind of gotten that vibe. Like I'll be the casual all day, you know, and I can make conversation stuff, but I'm not gonna pretend to be like I'm more into it than I really am. You know what I mean? Like Sunflora, like I've seen that Pokemon, but if I looked at that Pokemon, I'd be like, dude, I don't know what its name is. Greg, bro. I'm like, sure, I guess.
Follow him.
Hey yo, hey, bro, he's trying to mug him.
Or I don't know if he has them like.
Is this what the name of the game is? You're just trying to not get mugged by Pokemon as a elementary schooler. Look, man,
you go into the back alley. There's a Machoke there, and it's just like.
Yeah, he's doing like an illegal Armenian arms dealer trade or whatever. It's like Jesus, man.
I got them puffins.
Yeah, I was like
puffins for you.
Yeah, bro. It's like I got those rare candies you wanted, dude. It's like this is not what I was expecting for a Pokemon game. I think the only thing I did like about when I did play Sword, I like being able to customize my character. That was one thing that like you never really got to do any of them. But I was kind of like back and forth between playing that, just because like I like the idea of being able to customize your character, but I also do like the idea of the character in that region being their own thing. Right?
Yeah,
like, there's a reason.
Like what you're saying too.
Like, you know, Red existing as a Pokemon character is like a legend, right? In that scope, because of who he is and like canonically what has happened there. But it's like when you like do all this other stuff in these other games, where you're just kind of like the fill-in character, it's kind of like, do my events really matter? Because if like we've kind of seen them kind of like refer back to the older games now, that's like, does your character get brought back up, or are they gonna like throw them to the wayside for some other reason? So like, oh, he's, you know, he's stopping an Armenian arms dealer trade by 7 Sunfloras, you know, who are trying to like mug children, you know.
And it would be cool, at least like, since we both like the character designer aspect, where you can design your own character, like character creation and stuff. It would be cool if you could some like the game sees your save and then it imports your character, and maybe there's like a cameo of your character or whatever.
I think that would be cool. No, I agree. I think that if they could like take your data from a previous game, like especially if it was like Sword and Shield 2, right? Like if they carry that out in a similar region, and if you had already something like that for them to be able to continue your character story, I don't even think that even needs to apply for Pokemon. I think there's plenty of games that have done that, right? Where it's like, oh geez, that those Sunflowers are lagging.
Yeah, this is Switch 1, baby. Like, this is why I'm excited for like a Switch 2 patch to see what happens here, because they're clearly not running at a 30 FPS. You can see that like the weird cartoony comic book delay as they move around. It's kind of strange. And you can see, like, if you pay attention to
really enough though, it is endearing. Like not that there, but but like the way they move and stuff, it reminds me of like the game Tomba, right? Because there was like a claymation type of game,
right?
Yeah, but the pink hair and stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, but it's like that game had to do this frame rate for a reason, right? But again, like this is what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter how big of a graph people, right? Like,
that was interesting.
So when you put them all on screen, like some people are animated on twos, some are on this, some are on that, right? And like it creates like a super cool like look to everybody. It really gives everybody their own character and such a whole new like depth, you know? And if that was the case here, that would be awesome, you know?
Yeah.
But this is not the case. This is just the Switch
performance.
Yeah, this is
like you could see the people walking. Look at that person right there just chugging. Like you could just see the like they were walking like.
You would think that like typically if you got closer to them, right, like it would focus.
It would get
more.
better.
It does not get better.
No. And
but
people.
This is like what I'm talking about, where it's like people are complaining about like everything looking so dead, right? Like everything looking so flat. Like look at the trees, right? There's like everything is just X's and Y's. There's no fullness to it, which like I understand when like you're like this close next to it and you see every single little pixel that you're complaining about it. But it's definitely just like I hope that with the advancement of this, it eases a lot of people's concerns overall. Because I think everyone who complains about it, for the most part, does complain about it out of love. Like that looks perfectly fine, you know? And everything else, like in these like smaller scales, is totally cool. But it's like, people don't want the small scale. They just don't want to sit in a room. Or just like a choreographed battle. They don't want just that. They really want to feel like they are in that space and exploring it, you know? And I think there's like some games that really kind of like crack the code on how to be able to handle that. And not even talking about Switch, I mean just like games in general. Like Gravity Rush 2 is like an amazing example where it's like your character can go between 3 different levels in the main world, you know, and it's like the way it presents everything out is like you're falling and like flying through clouds and stuff, so things can load, and every environment.
Another game in my backlog.
Dude, that'll be the next episode. Beat that, we'll come back. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, because
like,
I beat the first game on like the Vita, but I didn't beat the
second one.
Second game. Yeah, I have the second.
I mean, they're both great. I mean, even like in the first game,
very interesting mechanic.
I mean, for sure, but like that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's not a 4K ultra game. It's just super stylistic. It's fun to play. The characters are well written, and when you like play it, you get like a really cool sense of feeling of just like, this is fun. I enjoy doing this, and and I think a lot of people still won't feel that from what Nintendo puts into like a lot of their stuff. I just feel that hopefully with this next set of stuff that they got, that's really going to help push that barrier even further for them. So they can not only make cooler games and whatnot, but kind of give people what they've been asking for quite a long time. But time will tell.
Yeah, for real. I mean, it's coming, and I'm excited to see games like this get because it's a day one free update for the Switch 2, and I'm like, are they? But there's not a lot of detail. They just say, increased performance and frame rate, but will they add an extra touch of, we can handle the power now, let's add some more grass, or let's make it look a lot less dead? The characters no longer look like robots walking around because they.
I think they should keep that. I think that's. I think that adds to like some sort of like creepypasta conspiracy theory. I want to see somebody make that where it's like, is everybody in Scarlet and Violet actually a robot?
Yeah.
Look at this. Is there a gang of sunflower Pokemon that are actually ganging up on elementary school students?
Yeah. And I think that's where it centers around in this time around, right? Like your students right out of school.
I mean, that's what like all the games are. Like they're
all like kids. Teenagers.
I mean, that's the core of Pokemon. It's meant for kids, and I think that the problem is that the demographic for the large portion of like, especially in America, is not kids. It's like how many, like when Pokemon Go came out, like it was fun, everyone loved it, but like we knew there was a lot of people that were not children playing.
Yeah, of course.
It's like there are people sitting in parks, waiting for kids to probably come to them.
They have events and stuff, and people all get together and stuff and meetups. They still do it.
I mean, for sure, but it's just like it's a larger scale audience, and I think that they've kind of shifted some of their stuff to try to appease to like their older audience. But I think they still want to keep the core that this is, I mean, it's a child's game, right? It's a kid. Like that's what they're always going to aim for. So the self-insert protagonist is always going to be some kid. It's been like that since the first game. Is going to probably be like that to the last. But I would definitely like to see. Not a more mature Pokemon game. I think just more like something that is a bit more dedicated to an older audience. So
Yeah.
if I could put
I
a
mean-
beard on the guy, you know, if we're gonna go cuss
Yeah.
the character out, I mean,
That would be cool.
I mean, like it had like a spin-off game. Like I remember they used to have a set of spin-off games. I forget the name of it, but it's like you were like a ranger. It was like on the DS where you had to use your stylus and you had to like
Oh,
scale.
right.
You know, it's like
Pokemon Ranger, I think.
yeah, something like that. But it's like, you know, you can clearly do it. You can have the people write those type of games, and you can make really cool characters and stories and scripts and stuff with it.
I don't
Just
know about these
make it
two,
real.
Scarlet and Violet, but I know that, you know, since Pokemon Black and White, they've been a bit more story oriented. Every Pokemon game had a story, of course, but I just feel like there was just more story. A little bit
I
more
agree.
detail. And Pokemon White and Black, for example, brought up something that nobody's really brought up in the game world anyway. In real life, people have brought this up, but Black and White have brought up, hey, you're using Pokemon and you're like, you know, you're capturing them and taking away their freedom. And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting aspect, because technically, yeah, you're pretty much dogfighting, you know what I mean? You're just capturing these creatures
Yeah.
and making them fight each other.
I mean, wasn't there something like that in like the first Pokemon game, like Pokemon Yellow, where it's like one of the gym leaders was like a soldier? And he was like, I fought in the Pokemon War. I was like, what does that mean?
Oh yeah, is that the
Sergeant?
electric-
He's like, yeah, he's
the
the electric
electric-
gym leader. Yeah, he looks like somewhere between like a mixture of Paul Phoenix from Tekken and Guile from Street Fighter. He's kind of got that aesthetic to him, you know, or it's like
Yeah.
the super like spiked up hair or something like that. But yeah, it's like they've touched it, but they've never really dove deeper into that. I know when I played Sword and Shield, I mean, there definitely was like a larger kind of overarching story, but I feel like older Pokemon games from like when I remember playing were definitely more about like, here's this big bad evil organization trying to like take over the world or something, fight and do some stuff, and then the A, B, and the B plot, you know, coincide and you become the gym leader of all of whatever, right? But now it's been less of that. There's definitely been like big grandiose things at the end, but it's like I never really got the idea of like the fate of the world was at stake. I think maybe like that last game that came out, I forget the name, where it's like you're set back in time or whatever. I didn't play that one. Like I said, like that one had like a bigger overarching story, and like the writing in it was
talking about Arceus?
yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Like the elements of like where they're pulling the arrow were definitely there, but when they let go, I think it was just again more of the performance aspect that kind of maybe put people off for whatever reason.
Yeah, it definitely, I'll be honest, in terms of gameplay mechanics, it is my favorite Pokemon game. I was like, they
Yep.
finally gave us something they want. Yes, it's not in modern day, but it kind of worked. You know, you were kind of like a ninja, and, you know,
Yeah,
you had a sneaking mechanic. You could, you know, when a shiny showed up, you can actually hear a special like
like a chime
ding
or
noise. Yeah, like a chime, yeah. And then, you know, hiding in the grass, like throwing the Pokeball, even worked with the gyro so you can like aim it properly. And that was like really fun. And you can ride Pokemon, get around. I was like, wow, I hope the next game, I thought Scarlet and Violet was going to be like this, but I guess it was already in development by a different
and then they
team.
were like, what if a Pokemon was a motorcycle?
Yeah.
Now if we had 7 sunflowers as Pokemon ganging up on a middle schooler, now it's
Yeah.
gonna be lunch money.
But the catch mechanic was the most fun thing about Arceus, and they didn't put that in Scarlet and Violet, and that disappointed a lot of people. But it looks
Yeah.
like ZA is bringing that back, so hopefully they know that that's what works out, and they keep that live catch mechanic.
I mean, for sure, it definitely sounds like they're trying new things out already, but it's like the game development is not as easy as people want to think, right? Like they think just make the game, bro. It ain't that hard. Draw it. Just make it work. Make it better, you know? But it's like we can make it a lot better. We can make it a lot heavier, right? But then we can also make it more expensive for you. So it's like trying to find that sweet spot of everything is always going to be the most difficult part. And like
Yeah.
even like in these clips that we're watching now, it's like seeing stuff in the draw distance be so big, but like having stuff randomly pop up at you in the
Yeah.
front, you know? It's
They
like
they're just popping in. It's just like, it is a little jarring.
and it is, but it's like I can't blame them for that when it's not them failing to program it. It's just that like this is the only thing that makes it stable enough that this can work. Also, why is this person using a Miracle to fight God, basically? Like, yeah, Great Tusk, that's what it was called. I was like,
Yeah.
Jesus,
Oh
oh my
my
God. I think this is how
Crazy.
Attack on Titan starts, actually.
Yeah. They should have the music.
Yeah, seriously, dude. I'm like, oh my god. But yeah, I mean, but like this is the type of stuff that like, you know, you play Pokemon 4 because you're like, this is just fun. You know, like let me go ahead and fight, you know, a gigantic monster with like an electric rat and call it a day. But I don't know. I think they're gonna buff it out. I think with the newer stuff that's gonna come out, it's gonna be a good run for it. I just really hope that like once things calm down and more people can get it into their hands, you know, to actually try it out, that's in a better spot.
Yeah,
I can definitely foresee it being a situation where maybe they kind of get screwed over, kind of like I think wasn't it the Switch 2? Not the Switch 2, the Wii U had a pretty poor release as well, right?
Yeah.
So I think as long as like people are able to get their hands on it on some way, shape, or form, that'll be better. But I think with at least in America, we're pretty screwed.
It's kind of crazy how everyone complained about it, and you're complaining about the price. I wasn't complaining about the price because I bought a Steam Deck and that was like $600, so I knew what I was kind of getting. And for what they're offering, $450, I was like, yeah, that sounds right, actually. You know, because it just makes sense.
I do agree that it is. I think it's just a matter of like I might be like talking about the price stuff. Well, I mean, to an extent I am, but I think the biggest problem that we have right now is scalpers. If people wanting to buy it, then create like a shortage and then go ahead and upcharge. I mean, that's what happened with the PlayStation 5, right? PlayStation 5 was super anticipated, even though it didn't have any games for it, but people still wanted it, and then people were buying them all out and then selling them on like Facebook Marketplace for like $1,000.
Yeah.
So it's like you can only do as much as you can try. Like, how much are you willing to fight for when you got other stuff more important in your life? You know what I mean? It's like
for real.
It's like I'm like you're fighting to lose money. That's all it is. You're trying to get the best bang for your buck, just so this way it's not in your pocket anymore. Especially at least with PS5, with the role I have, is pretty bad. Like hopefully at least with this, it's in a better space that like people can actually fairly get their hands on. I think some places have been pretty good with like the pre-orders and stuff. You know,
yeah, they have some implementations for scalpers. Apparently, a lot of the cancellation orders were for scalpers and stuff, and you know. Nintendo has their lottery thing that they have going on. Some people are starting getting that. I signed up for that and I still didn't get anything. Luckily, I was able to secure our pre-orders, so that's the cool thing. But that's through Walmart and Best Buy. Like I didn't luck out with the Nintendo route because people were getting their emails. I didn't get anything. They made an announcement saying that they don't have enough, and it's kind of crazy because this is the most amount of consoles they've made ever to be ready for release.
Really?
And yeah, this is like they went above and beyond because they learned what not to do with the Switch 1. I was lucky to get a Switch 1 day one when it came out with I even have the Breath of the Wild case collector's edition. Came up with the Master Sword statue.
Hell yeah.
But it's it was sold out. Like people couldn't get a Switch for a long time. I had my friend who couldn't get it for a long time.
Crazy.
Another thing to bring up was just I heard HD 2D Rumble, or HD Rumble, 2. HD Rumble 2 is in, and it's awesome.
Really?
They're saying, yeah, that the HD Rumble is a lot better, a lot more refined, and it can make a lot more detailed like vibrations.
I mean, I know that like with the first set of Pro Controllers, the only thing I ever had an issue with, or at least the thing I mainly had seen an issue with, was just the thumbsticks. You know, I never really had any like sort of issue with like the infrared or like the sensor, like the actual motion control for myself personally most of the time. But I always knew that the sticks were always easily the most complained about thing, like in forever.
Yeah, they definitely could be better. Using the Steam Deck sticks versus like Switch sticks is like it is a night and day difference. They actually feel like full console sticks.
Well, I mean that's what they were trying to go for. I mean it's the reason why like when PlayStation was trying to do a handheld, we're just gonna put a PlayStation controller in a tablet, and that's what it feels like. It just feels like you have your PS5 controller in your hands, but the problem is that it looks terrible and it doesn't feel that great, and once all the other issues we already kind of talked about. But like with the Switch, it was just the fact that was number one, also like way too small, and also the stick drift, especially when like your launch titles are Smash Brothers and Mario Kart, which is nothing more than people doing this to the thumbstick all the time. And not to mention like the Splatoon games, right? Like that was coming out pretty, like the first 3 that got pushed out all within the Switch 1 life cycle, So the people were getting more share of their bang for their buck to try like go out and like try and replace it. I know that they, like, the Pro Controller fixed a lot of those issues, but I also had my own personal problems with kind of the first Pro Controller. I felt it was a little too bulky for me personally, but that's just also just because I was so used to being a PlayStation gamer, right? Like, I was using PS4 controllers all the time, and like I gave the Switch to my sister so she could play it, and then when I would play it, you know, or borrow it for an extended period of time, it just felt super tiny, you know.
Yeah.
But also for me, like playing like fighting games or whatever, it's like I'm used to consoles and sticks and whatever, where like I can feel more tactile as opposed to just like rubbing my thumbs together like a bunch of evil mice, you know, like Pinky and the Brain style, like we will conquer the world one day.
Yeah.
But
I noticed something and I'm trying to pause it. That's what I'm doing, so I apologize. But it's because I was wondering, right? I was trying to capture the inside of the dock. Cause,
the dock?
Yeah, because the dock has a fan, and for some reason in my head, the fan, I was like, oh, is it blowing on the backside, like right here? Because that's where the fan is. But
Yeah.
I think what's happening is it's blowing through underneath, yeah. Straight
I
into
think
the
if you
system.
use the key next to L, it does like a frame by frame in YouTube.
Is it? Oh, whoops. That's all right. The only reason I think that now is because the D brand has this is the case I actually plan to be getting. Switch to D brand. It looks really good. And it's one of the only cases that can actually split up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'm going to pick this one up because I have the kill switch for my regular Steam Deck, and the quality is just really good. It's like the best quality case I've had on anything. It's just premium. It's got like the sandpaper-like feel to it, but it's not sandpaper. It's very like comfortable grip.
Right. It's got more like a grainy texture to it, so it's got like maybe better grip control. Okay.
But yeah, like you see this dock that comes with the D brand. If you buy it, you don't have to get all the accessories for this case, but whichever ones you want to pay for. But you see the little lines next to the USB-C. This dock is advertised as it keeps the OEM fan support for your Switch when it's docked. So I'm like, oh, that's how the fan is working. It's going from underneath. And I never really thought about it until I saw this, and I was like, oh, okay. Because how is it keeping that, but it's not on the inside?
Well, the only thing I can imagine being a potential issue with maybe that design is if a fan is faulty and it's just blowing hot air, it's not cooling down enough.
Right.
Like you're just literally blowing that into the peripherals itself and heating up. I can imagine. Well, I mean, it's got a battery on both the top or charging port on the top and bottom, but the battery's in the middle of it all. So I mean, the battery's probably gonna end up feeling probably even more overheated.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, at least hopefully you can cook a steak on it. We'll see.
Yeah. But yeah, just
I'm gonna be honest. The C button, if they're trying to only utilize that for chat, I think it's a mistake.
yeah,
I think it's gonna be.
That's they call it the cash button because apparently you can only use it if you pay for their service. But they're saying, the first up until next year, May or something like that.
Yeah, they're gonna let people use it and stuff, and then after that, they're gonna force you to pay it up. And I'm like,
why do that when there's Discord?
Seriously, I don't think I've ever needed to utilize an in-game chat for a very long time. There's only a few select games I'll use the built-in chat for. Like I was playing Repo like last night with a few buddies of mine, and that's just because.
Oh, I want to play that. I didn't know you had it.
Hey, but we'll do it right after this if you want. But yeah, it's a fun game, but it's just like once you kind of and it just helps to like not have like the echo coming in from like your Discord or whatever else you're using to like call someone, right? But like, I don't know.
Is that proximity?
Yeah, it's proximity chat. So,
it's better to use the in-game chat.
well, it's more true to the form, right? In game, if you're using that, so this way, like the monsters can hear you, and then you could go ahead and do this, that, and the other, right?
That makes sense.
It's more cool in that aspect of it, but if you just want to ignore all that, you could just mute yourself in game and then just use something else. But like same thing as here, right? Like you could use that C button if you want, but it's not really answering anything. I feel like maybe they just got some sort of like weird deal for something, and they're like, we just have to find a way to get that pushed in, or like some sort of executive was like, I want them to talk and see each other, make that happen, and then they had to find a way to make it happen, even though nobody wants it.
On the positive side, I do think it's cool that it gives people that option to like not just go through their stupid cell phone anymore. Like, because
I mean, true.
like,
I think having a native app is better in the
Yeah.
long term, but I also don't think that it was ever answering a question that someone was asking, or at least not for me. You
yeah,
know?
not for me either. I wasn't really too worried about it. I'm gonna be that guy that gets the camera and everything because I have this channel and stuff too now. But I also want to see what it's like.
I mean, for sure. I mean, I think like just having it as an additional peripheral is going to be kind of cool. But it's just, like let's learn from Xbox's mistake, right? Like they forced the Kinect onto everybody, and then they were like, you have to use the Kinect just to have it work. And everyone was like, that's stupid. We're not going to buy Xboxes anymore. Then Xbox said, sorry, you don't have to do that anymore. But please use the Kinect.
Yeah.
We spend way too much money trying to develop this. It's only good for like hospitals or something, you know?
Yeah,
Like nothing else. So as long as I don't think they would go through that in that space, because like the controllers already, like the Joy-Cons on the Switch, are so much more better and like more fun to play with. Like even like in the tech demos that they had for like the first Switch, it would like, you know, being able to like do like the text to draw or whatever, like the Wii Fit game that they had basically done, the Ring Fit, you know, it's like
yeah.
they have way more stuff that they could utilize to make a gimmick out of it to like push on for games, as opposed to needing to utilize the camera. I think it's only gonna be meant for that type of stuff, but I'm interested to kind of like learn more about the reasoning if they actually ever expand upon that, other than just like we wanted to.
Yeah, and I'm also curious too, because like, you know, they're advertising it. Even the mic quality when you're not using like an actual headset or something, because it has noise cancellation and stuff like that just built into the Switch. So I'm curious to see.
Yeah, like I don't think that it's gonna be like a cheap out by any means until we actually like see how it actually comes out, you know. But I do think that like it's gonna be an interesting play to see like what they try to do later down the line, right?
Yeah.
Because like we have a mouse, we have a camera, we have headphones, we have microphones. It's like, are you trying to build a PC out of the Switch? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe they heard what Microsoft was doing, right? With basically trying to put in Steam OS or whatever into the next Xbox or whatever.
Yeah. And
So
speaking of mouse, I paused it here because it's like, this is what was so appealing to me, that because you can separate the Joy-Cons with the case portion still attached, that looks a lot more comfortable to hold when you're in mouse mode. You know,
no,
so
for sure. The natural ergonomic grip of it and stuff, as opposed to doing.
That's what people complained about in person. But yeah, there are other cases and stuff too that
let's see what you're talking about.
people are getting. I actually have this version of the case for my first Switch, and it's very comfortable to hold, but it's not deep brand. Definitely cheaper, for sure, but it is a comfortable case. The Skull and Co.
I'm not gonna lie, I was raw dogging mine pretty hard. I was like, if it fails, if it falls.
Yeah, I was for a long time. It's just the you got that carpal tunnel, dude. Like I don't, but I just mean like.
But it feels like you're using this all the time. Or whatever. That's why
Once I got the Skull and Co ones, I was like, oh my god. Oh, by the way, 9-day difference. I actually ordered these, and I have a short video on these. The D-pad cap that you can put on. It has a pivot. Dude, I have the first one or the Switch one. It works really well. I was surprised that it worked that well. This version of it for the Switch 2 has a pivot on it. It shows $9.99 in this video, but when I checked on the actual website for Skull and Co, it was like $13. If you go to Amazon, you can get it for.
That's still nothing terrible though. Like sub 20, you know what I mean? So $20, you know, like I feel like that's as much as I'd be willing to pay if I needed something like that.
Yeah,
that is one of the things that I didn't like about just the Joy-Cons in general was like I get the novelty, right? Because their whole thing is being able to take any controller, whether it's the left side or the right side, and then you could just take it and play it regardless. But I understand their whole core like idea of a Switch is it's a family console. It's not your console, right? So it's like get people, share with friends, do this, do that, and like by all means with what it does and what you ask of it, that's pretty great. But for people who wanted to just go solo and just like play certain types of games that require a bit more dexterity from the D-pad, it is kind of a pain. Like especially like in the future, like if they're putting something like Street Fighter 6 on there, it's not going to go well with that type of D-pad. You know, just because having to do like a core circle or whatever, like it's not impossible, it's not undoable, and there's probably going to be people, hey, look, there you go. The arcade box is right there, you know. It's like people will do it regardless of whatever they have in front of them for like a fighting game. But it is just like, it's not my personal preference of style. Like I'd rather use a D-pad or, you know, just the analytic if I need to, right? But if I want that more tactile, like I need to feel like I'm more precise. Or if, again, if the stick drift is bad and you can't use the thumbstick as much as you need to use the D-pad instead, there you go, right?
Yeah, hopefully these don't get stick drift, but apparently, and I did get stick drift on one of my controllers. It's only happened to me once personally, but I know how to take apart the Switch One Joy-Cons and put them back together, and I've done my own little modding here and there. I have a D-pad, an actual D-pad on my left Joy-Con because I modded it, but that was after the year warranty, you know, and I don't plan to open these up because it's like they're going to be so hard to get for a while, so I'm not going to experiment.
Well, I mean, they're going to give you that whole game, right? Like they're selling a game to be like, hey, here's the internals. Go ahead, play the game and figure it out. So this way you can take it apart yourself. Which I mean, I think that's pretty cool to see. Like newer consoles kind of do that. Like, you know, for example, PS5 had its own sort of like Astro's Playroom and stuff. You know, where it's like they had that and be like, hey, go into all these levels and here's all these like cameos or whatever from like the other game characters and whatnot. It's like it really felt like a celebration of the console itself. So I think if they have something similar for that for the Switch 2, I think that would be pretty cool to see as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's not something that realistically anyone but nerds like us would want. It's an experience to play. I think most people who are like, you know, like, I mean, imagine you get a Switch 2 for like Christmas for like a kid, you know, they're not going to be like, oh my god, they're using a NVIDIA chip processor, holy shit. You know, they're not going to care about that, but they are probably going to be like, oh, this is a fun game, I can get behind that. I think that's maybe something I want more out of the Switch too. I would like to see more titles that are kind of more in like the Wii Sports kind of alley, you know, just something that's like...
I was hoping that they would bring that back. I know they had like a Switch. I didn't get it.
They have a Wii Sports or a Switch Sports Resort game or whatever it is.
Did you get it? Is it good?
I didn't, but I played it and it's fine, but it's definitely like...
That'd be better.
I mean, it just doesn't have the same sense of nostalgia to an extent, you know what I mean? I think if they kind of like really made something else out of it though, like if they kind of just took it around with it a bit further with like the new technology inside of it, I think that would be really cool to see. Hey, like for them to show you how to like a stress test the console in a cooler way. You know, I think that would be pretty awesome to kind of see.
Yeah, and yeah, I can't wait. It's, you know, June 5th is around the corner. You know, we have like less than a month to get to it, man, and I'm excited. And I guess we can start bringing the episode to a close. But before we do, what's your most anticipated title right now? Like, or what? Even if it's a Switch One game that you're trying to get back into because it'll run better or whatever it is, what is your most anticipated?
I mean, I got a couple. I mean, Switch 2 originals, honestly, the first thing I want to get my hands on, the Mario Kart World. I feel like that's just because it's just such an elevation of what I expected it to be. Like I thought we were just going to get Mario Kart 9 and it was just going to be the same song and dance, but they really did. It really did feel like they had addressed every issue I felt I had with it, where I was like, okay, it's cool, but it's like I only have X amount of stages and I have to buy the DLCs for more courses, which we only got up until like a couple of years ago, and that only came after X amount of years after we had asked for it, you know. And then they're like, you want more characters? You can play as every character in here, you know. It's like, you want to be a fish, be a fish. You want to be XYZ, be that. And I think like the way that they're building the courses of like, instead of having it be, okay, race 1, race 2, race 3, and there's no connection between it, traveling in between, and like having basic, like they're really trying to create the world of Mario and give it to you right there in full force, you know. So I think that's probably my most anticipated game, just from like the first initial sets of stuff. Anything that I'd like for them to put in, or like, I mean, obviously if they put Final Fantasy 9 Remake on there sooner rather than later, that'd be great. But yeah, other than that, I don't have anything else I'm super anticipating, or at least nothing that I want to say yet, just because I don't want to get my hopes too high to be like, life is terrible. I hate this. refund all my Switch games, burn it down to the ground, you know?
Yeah, I honestly, the Switch 2 titles are good. I'm excited, super excited for Mario Kart Worlds, playing that with you and some other stuff. I like the the Metroid Prime 4 and Donkey Kong Bonanza, of course. But like the first thing I plan on doing is just playing those titles that have been on the back burner going through Breath of the Wild again, especially with that Zelda Notes app where you have you going to certain areas and you have like Zelda and other characters in the game like giving you lore and detail about the area you're in from their perspective is really cool. And that's through both games, which is cool. And I never really finished the second game. I was only in the very beginning or so. Just because you kind of get lost exploring and doing stuff, you end up skipping story sometimes, just getting lost in the world. But the performance is just kind of a drag, and I was like, you know what, it would be nice to hold off because I feel like they're gonna fix this, and that pays off because it looks like they did. So like I'm really excited to do that. Again, I mentioned Pokemon Scarlet, Violet. I never actually played them. I heard a lot of problems with it. People were upset, performance and other things, other jank that they had in there. But now I'm excited to see what that looks like. So I have so many games. Like I have so many games that are on the backlog that I haven't started or finished. Even like I mentioned previously, Echoes of Wisdom, which I was enjoying until like I started getting frame drops from 60 down to 15 FPS.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll wait, you know, and I'm glad I did. But yeah, that's the Zelda Notes app, and I think it's a good idea. I wish it would have been implemented in game. But yeah, like in this scene right here.
Zelda with an iPhone, am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, but this scene right here is like he walks into like her little lab, her little room, and she starts like, you'll have actual voice acting, and she did all the lines and everything, and she goes and she starts telling you her perspective about that area, which I think is really cool, and it brings life. And you kind of have like achievements now in the app, which is interesting. So people care about that stuff. So I think that'll be fun. But that's what I'm interested about. And I do plan to play the newer stuff too as I get to it. Again, the backlog is real. I know you're...
Oh yeah, look man, as long as there's Doom on it, we'll find a way to put Doom on there, and then we'll be all chill. It'll be fine.
Yeah. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. I plan to do more episodes like this. I plan to do an unboxing as well. So if you want to see that, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for being on here with me, Soni. I really appreciate that. And we can definitely do future episodes and stuff too.
Put me in, coach.
All right, guys. This is Lunar signing off.